students, welcome to Biology 2 class. We are now in chapter 7, part 3, biodiversity fungi. So, definition. What is a fungus? It is any member of larger group of eukaryotic organism that includes microorganisms such as yeast and molds, as well as the more familiar mushrooms. So, instead of cell walls, which are made out of cellulose, these actually have cell walls made of chitin. And they are much more closely related to animals compared to plants. Nutrition, they do nutrition by absorption, meaning that they will secrete their enzymes to a certain substrate, and the liquefied substrate will be absorbed directly into their cells. So they have hydrolytic enzymes and acids. These will decompose complex molecules into simpler ones that can be absorbed. So there are four modes. First mode is saprobe. Saprobe, it is where they will digest and absorb nutrients from dead organic matter. And this means that they are decomposers. Anything that dies, they will consume. Next will be parasites. Parasites will absorb nutrients from living hosts. So some live on tissues of living organisms. For example, our skin parasites such as ringworm and jock itch. Mutualistic, this means that they create symbiotic relationships with other organisms, for example, lichens. So they are driven with the ability of the fungus to decompose organic substrates that is inaccessible to its host, while the host will give it carbohydrate nutrition. And lastly, predators, they will actively trap other organisms as food. Alright, so this structure is called a mycelium. It is an extensive surface area under the substrate. Okay, so the mycelium is what we call the body of this fungi. Okay, and you have the hypha. Hypha will be all these threads. So except for yeast, hyphae are organized around and within the food source. So they're composed of tubular wall containing chitin, and they will provide enormous surface area. Okay, so as much as 10 cm square of soil might have 1 km hyphae with 314 cm square of surface area. So the fungal hyphae can be septate or aseptate. So septate means that each one of these cells actually have cell wall within them, called septa. Aseptate might have more nucleus in the same space with no cell wall at all. So they are called sinusitic. So parasitic fungi has a modification on their wall called haustoria. So in this case, their cells actually penetrate the host cell, but the cell itself they remain outside cell membrane. So how do they reproduce? They either reproduce sexually or asexually. Sexually, it is by meiosis. Asexually, by mitosis. So by default, when the conditions are okay, they will be just doing mitosis, and that's enough. Okay, mitosis will create the spores will be spread. But if the conditions are not good, okay, is for contingency, then two organisms, two different fungi, they have to join together. Okay, they have to do sexual reproduction, combine their genes together, combine the nucleus together to make a diverse type of new offspring. So spores, they are very special because they are very light, can be carried by wind, water, and insects, and they can germinate easily in moist places with appropriate substrata. Okay, so generalized life cycle of fungi, you have asexual and sexual. For asexual, it goes from spore, which will germinate, to become mycelium, which is the body, and the mycelium will create spore producing structures, and then spores are created. Okay, so it goes a cycle. For sexual, it starts as a mycelium, but they do not just create a spore producing structure. First of all, they have to fuse their cytoplasm together. So you have two fungi combine their nucleus together, plasmogamy. Okay, and then the caryotic stage, you have two nucleus, and then the chirogamy means that nucleus will fuse, causing them to become a diploid nucleus. This diploid nucleus will become meiosis, and this will create the spore producing structure just like asexual, which will create a lot of spores. The first division of fungi is called the zygomycota or zygote fungi. We call it zygote because they have resistant spherical spores formed during sexual reproduction. So they are xenocytic, meaning that they are parasites with their cell body or house, what you call it, haustoria, emerging into the host cell. So they have dikaryotic body, which is called two nucleus in terms of Gosporangia. So mostly they are terrestrial. They live on land in soil or decaying material, and they are mostly known as the plant and insect parasites. For example, Entomoptera muscae, which is a parasite in flies. So here is the Entomoptera infection inside of the insects. They dig into the cells and fill tissue full of hyphae. Next will be the Zygomycetes rhizopus stolonifer. This is the common bread mold. So this common bread mold can reproduce asexually. Sporangia will develop active hyphae. Mitosis will produce hundreds of haploid spores. Also via sexual reproduction. Mycelia of opposite mating types, plus or minus, will develop gametangia that contains several haplonuclei walled off by septum. And then plasmogamy of gametangia occurs. And what will happen is that you have a cell which has two nucleus, dikaryotic, zygosporangium. Under favorable conditions, charogamy occurs. The haplonuclei immediately undergo meiosis, producing sporangiums. Then sporangium undergoes mitosis to produce recombined haploid spores. Okay, you can see here this picture on the top right. This is the zygosporangia. Okay. So this black thing here is a spore that has two nuclei after the plasmogamy. So after plasmogamy, there are two cells which have combined together, and the two nucleus within these two cells will also combine together to form a single diploid nuclei, which is called chirogamy. That's the process. And then from this chirogamy, they will create a spore. Okay, a sporangium within the spore, where the spore is, and within this, the spores are all actually a combination between these two types of fungi. Next will be Ascomycota, which is a sac fungi. Sac fungi will produce sexual spores in sac-like asci. So it includes unicellular yeast and complex multicellular cup fungi. Hyphae are septate, and the tips of these special hyphae will form cups or conidia. Conidia are chain of haploid asexual spores. Okay, so the male strain will produce an antheridium, the female produce escagonium. So they will combine plasmogamy without nuclear fusion, just combine. And a special ascogenous hyphae arise in which pairs of nuclei migrate, one from male, one from female. So during sexual reproduction, thousands of asci fill a protein body called the ascocarp. If you can see this picture, this here, this cup-shaped thing is an ascocarp. So in each ascus, two or more haploid ascospore will fuse the nuclei in chirogamy. So that's when they will combine. So the diplonucleus give rise to haplonuclei by meiosis. The ascospores are then released, germinate, and form hyphae that are disseminated in the environment and start new mycelia. So you can see this is the life cycle of ascomycete. Asexually, it is just like usual. Okay, mycelium, conidia, and then back to mycelium. For sexual, they have to form an this bridge between antheridium and ascogonium. Okay, and then they have dikaryotic hyphae, and this dikaryotic hyphae will move into the ascus one by one, male and female, male and female. Okay, and then this male and female will combine together to make a diploid nucleus, and this diploid nucleus will perform meiosis to form 4 haploid nuclei, and it will create 8 ascospores. Now for the Basidiomycota or club fungi, this is named after the transient diploid stage, which is called Basidium. So these also have a septate hyphae, meaning that they actually have cross walls between the cells. They include mycorrhiza forming mutualist, mushroom forming fungi, and plant parasites such as rust and smut. So they're characterized by dichoric mycelium that reproduces sexually via basidiocarp. So what you are looking at there, the mushroom, that's what we call the basidiocarp. For the life cycle of a mushroom forming basidiomycete, it is created by sexual rather than asexual reproduction. So this club-shaped basidium carries spore called basidiospores. Within the basidium, there are two nuclei of two different mating strains. They fuse together, they combine together to form a diploid nucleus, which then undergoes meiosis. So the haploid nuclei will migrate into basidiospores, which germinate and generate haplohyphae. The basidium that results generate a basidiocarp, which is a fruiting body that produced from the ground. So this is what we call the mushroom. So this basidiocarp has a developing basidia under the cap. Right. So yeast. Yeast are unicellular. Okay. They are not like the other fungus. Other fungus you can see, but here the yeast, it is macroscopic. So how do they reproduce? Is by budding, or sexually by producing asci or basidia. So the most important yeast would be Saccharomyces cerevisiae. We use it for baking and brewing and as a model organism in scientific research. So yeast evolves sugar and releases CO2 bubbles and small amounts of ethyl alcohol. When bread is baked, the heat will put yeast in a highly excited state, creating CO2 very quickly and causing the bread to rise in the oven. The high temperature also kills the yeast quickly, which is why, toward the end of the baking process, carbon dioxide production ceases. Lichens. So lichens is a symbiosis of algae with fungal hyphae. The algae provides fungus with food and may make nitrogen, and fungus provides food and fungus provides good environment for growth. Hyphal mass absorbs minerals and protects algae. So it produces compounds that shield algae from sunlight and are toxic to prevent predation. Next will be mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae are specific mutualistic association of plant roots and fungi. So fungi in this relationship, they will increase absorptive surface of roots and exchange soil minerals. So mycorrhizae are very common. It is found in 95% of vascular plants and is necessary for optimal plant growth. Ant fungus mutualism. So these are ants that are able to farm their own food. The name is the leafcutter ant. So they would farm fungus for food. They will firstly they will collect a lot of leaves. The leaf will be the substrate for the fungus, and they will take care of the fungus. The fungus will give them free food. Okay? So a new queen of this colony will bring a little bit of inoculum, a seed for a new farm in her new colony. Ecological impact of fungi. So ecosystems depend on fungi as decomposers and hypaions decompose food, wood, and even plastic. So some fungi are pathogens. For example, athlete's foot and ringworm. Plants, they are particularly susceptible. For example, Dutch elm disease. And there's a certain disease called ergot. It affects cereal crops and causes gangrene, hallucinations, and St. Anthony's fire. So if you can see in this picture, St. Anthony's fire or devil curse sufferers would have their limbs rotten off, gangrene, and they are mostly they are bloody. So they are accused as witches because why? It seems like they are cursed. Okay, they will eat this rye bread which have been affected by cereal crops affected by this ergotism. When they eat it, okay, they will have a gangrene. So their hands and feet will turn black and rot off. So that's why you can see in this picture, they don't have any feet and they are on wooden stilts. Okay, so here is a zombie fungus called cordyceps. So this zombie fungus would control the body of the insects. Usually insects which are social, such as ants, they will be driven to travel alone, and they will be propelled. Okay, they will be propelled to go to a certain high area, isolated from the other members of the community, and there they will stay until the fungus will mature and and be emerging from their heads. Okay, so this cordyceps mushroom is actually something that is used by humans for health purposes. It is used for making health drinks, cordyceps. Right, here is a cordyceps drink, okay, and also cordyceps extract. What you can see there is cordyceps being intentionally infected into a silkworm. Okay, and so the body that you can see, the wrinkly one, that's the body of the silkworm, and what's coming out of it is the cordyceps. So we use them to harvest cordyceps. So many animals, including humans, eat fungi. In the US, the mushroom consumption is restricted to just agaricus mushrooms. We eat a range of cultivated and wild mushrooms, truffles, if you can see on the bottom there, the underground ascocarps or Marsilia that are mycorrhizal on tree roots. So they're very, very expensive. Okay, so here are some weird fungi species. So you have the Clatocybe, it is bioluminescent and poisonous. Mycena lucentipes, also glow in the dark. Bleeding tooth, Hardinella pecci. This one is actually quite useful as an anticoagulant. Veil lady mushroom, Phallus impedicus, which is common stinkhorn. So phallus, all the mushrooms actually look like a penis. So this is a phenomenon that we can see sometimes after raining. So this is called a fairy ring. Okay, so these fairy rings usually appears after another rain. So it is like a ring of mushrooms. Okay, a circle of mushrooms. So according to superstition, especially in European folklore, you cannot go and step into the fairy ring. You'll be trapped. You'll be compelled to dance until you die of exhaustion, because this is actually belong to the fairies. Okay. Uh, so the explanation is that the mycelium underground actually grows in a circle, and whenever they create the floating body or basilocarp, you'll be at the edges of the mycelia or the body. So that's how fairy rings work. Okay, the end, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Goodbye.